Hello and welcome to World Panorama, your favorite weekly show on all the biggest international news stories. I'm Aishwarya Kapoor with you. Let us begin the program with this week's top international stories in the headlines. UN designates a JAISH-E-MOHAMMED chief Masood Azhar as a global terrorist. Prime Minister Modi calls it a big success for India's efforts to root out terrorism. Government says India will continue efforts through international forums to fight terror. Crisis in Venezuela escalates. 4 people dead in clashes as President Maduro and opposition leader Guaido stage rival rallies. Maduro says any coup plotter would be defeated. US threatens military action. Sri Lankan security forces on high level of alert after Easter Sunday bombings. Reports warn fresh attacks before start of holy Islamic month of Ramadan. Police released pictures and names of 9 suicide bombers involved in the attacks. And Japan's new emperor Naruhito ascends a chrysanthemum throne, ushering in a new era of Reiwa or beautiful harmony. New emperor pledges to be symbol of unity. The biggest story this week, in a move that is being hailed as a diplomatic victory for India, the United Nations on Wednesday listed JAISH-E-MOHAMMED chief Masood Azhar as an international terrorist. India had asked for the UN to designate Azhar as a global terrorist following the Mumbai terror attacks. But China, acting on behalf of Pakistan, used its veto in the UN Security Council to block the move 3 times. And after the Pulwama attack, however, both Pakistan and China came under sustained international pressure to rein in Azhar and his group. The United States, the UK and France supported India's bid to designate Azhar as a global terrorist, leading to China vacating its objections. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that the decision is a big success for India's efforts to root out terrorism and prove that the country's voice can no longer be ignored on the global stage.
Big diplomatic victory for India. After almost a decade-long efforts, the United Nations designated Pakistan-based JAISH-E-MOHAMMED chief Masood Azhar as a global terrorist. This after China lifted its hold on a proposal to blacklist him. The proposal was moved by France, UK and the US in the Security Council's 1267 Al-Qaeda Sanctions Committee in February after the Pulwama attacks. China had previously blocked the Sanctions Committee from imposing sanctions on Azhar in 2016 and 17. After the Pulwama attack, however, both China and Pakistan came under sustained international pressure to rein in Azhar and his group. The UNSC designation subjects Azhar to an assets freeze, travel ban and an arms embargo.
This is for us a significant outcome, because we have been at it for several years. The first effort that we made in this regard was in 2009. More recently, we have been persistent, diligent, and in a subterranean manner, making all our efforts towards this goal. That goal stands achieved. I'm grateful to the many countries who were supportive of this effort.
The Ministry of External Affairs welcomed the move, calling it a step in the right direction to demonstrate the international community's resolve to fight against terrorism and its enablers. In 2009, India moved a proposal by itself to designate Azhar as a global terrorist. Then again in 2016, after the Pathankot airbase attack, India moved the proposal, this time along with the US, UK and France, to ban Azhar. However, it was vetoed by China. A year later, in 2017, the P3 nations moved a similar proposal, which was yet again blocked by China. This time, however, China has relented. A major reason cited has been the sustained international pressure by India, US, Britain and France. There was even a threat to put the question of blacklisting Azhar to a public vote, a move that would have been very embarrassing for China. Commentators have also pointed to the warm 2018 Wuhan summit between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping.
आतंकवाद के खिलाफ संघर्ष में और आतंकवाद को जड़ से उखाड़ने के लिए लंबे समय से भारत जो प्रयास कर रहा था, ये उसकी बहुत बड़ी सफलता है.
UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres expressed hope that all member states will abide by the decisions of the Sanctions Committee. The US said the move demonstrates international commitment to root out terrorism in Pakistan. The UK and France, other members who had moved the resolution, also termed it a positive development for the South Asian region. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And crisis in Venezuela is escalating. Opposition leader Juan Guaido this week called for a rebellion to oust President Nicolas Maduro. 4 people have died in clashes since Tuesday. Both President Maduro and Guaido claim that they have the support of the armed forces and have been staging rival rallies in the capital. A defiant Maduro has said that any coup plotter would be defeated. In January, Guaido declared himself as Venezuela's interim leader, and he has the support of more than 50 countries, including the US, UK and most Latin American nations. The US says that it may take military action to resolve the crisis and accuses Russia and Cuba of destabilizing the country through their support for Maduro.
Protests on the streets of Venezuela on Wednesday. Supporters of opposition leader Juan Guaido making a renewed attempt to force embattled President Nicolas Maduro from power. This comes a day after violence erupted during several pro-Guaido rallies. Guaido supporters and armed military vehicles clashed throughout the day. At a rally near Caracas Air Force Base, rocks and smoking objects were seen flying through the air. Some protesters managed to break through a fence outside the Air Force Base. An anti-riot vehicle belonging to Venezuelan National Guard also was caught on fire. Protesters faced off with soldiers in tanks. 78 people were injured in the incidents, most of them hit with pellets or rubber bullets. The violence happened after a 3-minute video by Guaido was published in the early hours of Tuesday. It showed him standing alongside a number of men in military uniform as he announced he had the support of brave soldiers in Caracas. He also urged Venezuelans to join them in the streets and also appeared alongside another opposition leader, Leopoldo Lopez, who had been under house arrest since 2014. Guaido said that Operation Freedom has begun. Supporters on both sides then gathered in different places in the capital, Caracas, throughout Tuesday and clashed.
We are speaking to the armed forces, and today it is clear that the armed forces are with the people of Venezuela and not the dictator.
However, President Nicolas Maduro made an address to the nation, downplaying the attempted uprising against his government and also denying reports that he had planned to flee Venezuela for Cuba. Maduro claimed the coup had been defeated and the perpetrators were being interrogated.
Decía Mike Pompeo en la tarde.
The skirmish in Venezuela has been defeated, and President Donald Trump set off 1,000 expletives. Lies. My God, how far the men in the United States government are willing to go?
Lo bajaron del avión y le prohibieron que saliera del país.
UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has appealed for both sides to avoid violence. Germany's Foreign Minister Heiko Maas touted the UN Security Council as a possible path to a solution for violence in Venezuela. The US, that has backed Guaido since he declared himself interim leader, reiterated its support. The US also threatened to implement highest-level sanctions against Cuba unless their military immediately ceased its support of Maduro.
This is obviously a very serious situation. The President has been monitoring it minute by minute throughout the day, as have his advisors. We see this now as a potentially dispositive moment in the efforts of the Venezuelan people to regain their freedom, which we fully support.
The Trump administration has led calls for countries to recognize Guaido as Venezuela's legitimate leader and has won the support of 54 countries. But the effort to recruit more has largely stalled as Maduro clings to power amid a badly deteriorating economic situation. The fresh uprising is seen by many as yet another failed attempt by the opposition to take power. Yet, although Maduro still occupies the presidential palace, his future is not secure either. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And in the aftermath of Easter Sunday bombings, Sri Lanka continues to be on high alert. This as militants are expected to try to strike again before the holy month of Ramadan, which starts on Monday. The officials have warned that the suspects linked to the bombings are still at large. Sri Lankan police on Wednesday released the names and photographs of 9 alleged suicide bombers who carried out the Easter attacks, all belonging to an offshoot of a local group called NTJ. The 21st of April bombings at churches and luxury hotels killed more than 250 people.
Sri Lanka schools to reopen next week, 2 weeks after the deadly bomb attacks on Easter Sunday. The 9,000 public schools across the nation will open on 6th of May with stringent security measures. Security forces continue to maintain a high level of alert amid intelligence reports that the militants were likely to strike before the beginning of the Islamic holy month of Ramadan, which is due to begin on Monday, the same day that schools reopen.
The decision to open schools was taken with the clear agreement with the security services. The cabinet also took a decision that schools should only be opened after consultation with all security forces, including intelligence.
On Wednesday, Sri Lankan police released pictures and names of men they described as suicide bombers involved in attacks that targeted hotels and churches. Police suspect members of two previously little-known groups, NTJ and JMI, of carrying out the bombings that killed at least 253 people on Easter Sunday. The authorities are taking steps to freeze the assets of the terrorists involved. Lankan Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe has said that the threat is not over. The US has also warned that the members of the militant group blamed for Sunday Easter attacks may be at large and planning more assaults.
I can't comment on specific intelligence or investigative information, but I believe our warning is valid and still stands, which is that we do believe that there is active plotting underway, and we have warned U.S. citizens and then, of course, others who might read our warnings to be mindful of places that might make attractive targets for terrorists.
Authorities on Monday earlier banned women from wearing face veils under an emergency law put in place. The measures would help security forces to identify people as a hunt for any remaining attackers and their support network continues.
So we need measures to deal with international terrorism. We brought in the emergency regulations. We will have to look at the regulations to be dropped and new regulations against the terrorist movements. Some of them have been proscribed, but we are also preparing legislation to deal with the hiatus in our laws of taking action against those who join foreign terrorist movements and take part in activities.
9 suicide bombers carried out the series of devastating attacks that tore through 3 churches and 3 luxury hotels, killing 253 people and injuring 500 others. Thoughts and prayers continue to pour in, and families of the deceased quietly mourn their loved ones. Sri Lanka's capital Colombo is slowly settling back into a sense of normalcy, with traffic returning to the roads, residents slowly venturing out to buy basic goods and groceries, office workers also returning back to work. The government on Tuesday also lifted a ban on social media platforms, including Facebook, WhatsApp and Viber. Despite apparent normalcy, a sense of uneasiness still lurks. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. Japan's new emperor Naruhito has formally ascended the chrysanthemum throne.
This a day after his father, Akihito, abdicated from the world's oldest monarchy and ushered in a new imperial era. Naruhito symbolically received two objects, a sword and a gem, which are passed down through generations of emperors and are seen as symbols of imperial power. Thereafter, Naruhito addressed the nation for the first time as its 126th emperor, as he vowed to stand with the Japanese people.
Japan's new emperor, Naruhito, formally ascending to the chrysanthemum throne. The morning ceremony at the Imperial Palace in Tokyo on Wednesday saw Naruhito become the 126th Emperor of Japan. During the special ritual, 59-year-old Naruhito took possession of royal regalia and seals, including a sacred sword that provides ceremonial proof of his ascension. Only adult male imperial family members were allowed to attend the centuries-old ceremony. But Japan's lone female cabinet member, Satsuki Katayama, was in attendance.
ここに皇位を継承するにあたり、上皇陛下のこれまでの歩みに深く思いをいたし、
In ascending to the throne, I swear that I will reflect deeply on the course followed by His Majesty, the Emperor Emeritus, and bear in mind the path trodden by past emperors. I will act according to the Constitution and fulfill my responsibility as the symbol of the state and of the unity of the people of Japan, while always turning my thoughts to the people and standing with them.
幸せと国の一層の発展、そして世界の平和を切に希望いたします。
Naruhito replaced his father, Akihito, who had abdicated a day earlier. The abdication was the first in more than 200 years. Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe congratulated Naruhito. Naruhito's ascension signals the start of Reiwa era. Each emperor's reign is marked by their era name. The translation of Reiwa is beautiful harmony.
天皇陛下を国及び国民統合の象徴と仰ぎ
While regarding the emperor as the symbol of the state and of the unity of the people, we are determined to create a bright future for a Japan that is proud, that is peaceful and full of hope.
シェアの中で文化が生まれ育つ時代を作り上げていく決意であります。
The role of Japan's emperor has changed significantly. Once considered the living embodiment of gods, the emperor has become a largely symbolic figure. Unlike other monarchs, Naruhito is a symbol of the state rather than the head of state, and the Japanese emperor wields no political power. However, people all over Japan welcome the start of the new Reiwa era.
I hope the new emperor will stand with the Japanese people and do more things. I expect a lot from him.
Japan is the oldest continuing hereditary monarchy in the world. Legends dated back to about 600 BC. However, Naruhito, the first Japanese emperor to have studied abroad, is considered a new breed of royal, his outlook forged by the tradition-defying choices of his parents. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And here is a look at some more international news stories in Global Buzz. WikiLeaks co-founder Julian Assange was sentenced to 50 weeks in jail in London for breaching his bail conditions. Assange was sentenced for breaching his bail by entering the Ecuadorian embassy 7 years ago. Assange sought asylum in the Ecuadorian embassy in June 2012 to avoid extradition to Sweden, where he was wanted for questioning over rape and sexual assault allegations. But on 11th of April, Ecuador evicted him and then he was arrested by the British police. Meanwhile, in a separate case on Thursday, Assange said that he will fight extradition to the United States to face charges of conspiring to hack into a Pentagon computer, arguing that his work as a WikiLeaks founder has benefited the people. China and the United States held productive trade talks in Beijing on Wednesday and will continue discussions in Washington next week. U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin informed this as the two countries try to end their trade war. Mnuchin, along with the U.S. Trade Representative, held a day of discussions before Chinese Vice Premier Liu He goes to Washington next week for another round of talks in what could be the end game for negotiations. Beijing and Washington have cited progress on several issues. Taliban and US officials resumed peace talks on Wednesday in Qatar for the first time since March. However, Taliban continue to insist that it will not discuss any Afghan domestic issue until the two sides have agreed on the full withdrawal of the foreign forces and on how to prevent other armed groups from using Afghanistan to do harm abroad. The last round of talks ended with a draft framework of an agreement on the troop withdrawal, but no concrete results. The Taliban does not recognize the government of President Ashraf Ghani as legitimate, and an effort by Kabul to send a cross-section of Afghan leaders to meet with the Taliban in Doha 2 weeks ago collapsed. And lawmakers in the UK Parliament have declared an environment and climate emergency, making it the first country in the world to do so. The move comes a week after 16-year-old Swedish student Greta Thunberg addressed UK lawmakers to demand more climate action, and in the wake of protests by climate action group Extinction Rebellion that blocked major landmarks in London recently. Meanwhile, a damning UN report that will be released next week says that up to 1 million species face extinction due to human influence. The report painstakingly catalogues how humanity has undermined the natural resources upon which its very survival depends.
British Parliament became the first in the world to vote to declare a climate emergency. The motion was called by Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn and was approved without a vote. Though the motion is not legally binding, Corbyn said it was a huge step forward.
Today, Mr. Speaker, this House must declare an environment and climate emergency. We have no time to waste. We are living in a climate crisis that will spiral dangerously out of control unless we take rapid and dramatic action now.
The declaration of an emergency was one of the key demands put to the government by environmental activist group Extinction Rebellion in a series of protests over recent weeks. Extinction Rebellion called the vote a first step in the government telling the truth about the climate and ecological emergency.
You're trying to create a big enough story that it's impossible for government and other institutions to ignore. And that's because the story is so important, it has to be told, and that people then have to listen.
This comes even as a forthcoming UN report has indicated that up to 1 million species risk extinction due to human activity. It said that deforestation and agriculture, including livestock production, account for about a quarter of greenhouse emissions and have wreaked havoc on natural ecosystems as well. It warns of an imminent rapid acceleration in the global rate of species extinction. The report that will be released on 6th of May says biodiversity loss and global warming are closely linked. The issue of climate change challenge also reverberated at the Asian Development Bank annual meeting in Fiji.
And this annual meeting is so important for us because this is the first annual meeting we hold in Pacific Island countries. And as you can tell, we are surrounded by the beautiful ocean. But there are many challenges for these small island countries, especially the impact of climate change is becoming more clear, becoming clearer, including sea level rise and also the more frequent extreme weather event.
Dire warnings of an imminent global extinction crisis are not new. Many experts think that a mass extinction event, only the sixth in the last 500 million years, is already underway. So far, the global thermometer has risen 1 degree Celsius compared with mid-19th century levels. The 2015 Paris Agreement enjoins nations to cap the rise to well below 2 degrees. But a landmark UN climate report in October says that even if we are able to do that, that is, restrict the rising temperature below 2 degrees, that would still be enough to boost the intensity and frequency of deadly heat waves, droughts, floods and storms. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And finally, a three-eyed snake was recently discovered in northern Australia. Now, wildlife authorities shared photographs of the snake describing the discovery as peculiar. Nicknamed Monty Python, the baby python died just 2 weeks after it was found in March. Experts said that the snake's third eye on top of its head appeared to be a natural mutation. The X-ray scans showed that the snake did not have 2 heads but 1 skull with an additional eye socket and 3 functioning eyes. So take a look at the pictures of this peculiar snake as we take your leave. I'll see you next week with another edition of World Panorama. Bye-bye.